and my computer. Hi, we are live. Yay. So we are here with Catherine Hope. Catherine, I mean, we're gonna do our little intro here, but I just wanted to show our readers that Catherine Hope is a surprise repeat guest, kind of. Catherine,
Yes.
Catherine might look
tell
familiar.
us who you are.
Okay, do I look familiar? Because I'm actually Shayna Gray. Well,
Shayna
two
Gray.
author names, two genres, but same great writing, right? No, I'm I have a book out by Catherine. That's why my name's up on the screen here, and I wanted to come and read from it. So people could see my new book. And this is it, called The Last Message. And it's very much a takeoff of like Nicholas Sparks, Holly Miller, Rebecca Searles, that kind of a story. But nobody dies. So at least that way people know what to get. But so
it's a true romance.
It's more women's fiction.
Okay, got it.
It's more like a women's fiction with romantic elements, obviously, but it's all about grief and destiny and overcoming grief and, a little bit of intrigue in there. It seems all my books end up with some kind of an intrigue. So, so it's the tagline is a message meant for another, a love meant only for her. So it's set in the Pacific Northwest, and because I always thought Nicholas Sparks' Message in a Bottle, that's where the idea came from, was set in the Northwest, but in fact it was set on the East Coast, and I didn't know that. So, but anyhow, so I guess I should just dive right in. But what I'll say first is I do have TikTok, and I do have Twitter and Instagram. And I did create a Facebook page for Catherine. I'm not that active on it. It's only so I can get in.
But I'm. Ooh, oh, there we are.
Sorry, she's here. Hi, Marie. Sorry. Sorry about that. So, this is our other. Sorry, Catherine. Let Catherine finish real quick, and then we'll introduce you, Marie. Sorry about that. Catherine, go ahead. Finish.
I forget where I was now. What did I say?
You were saying that you created a Facebook page for Catherine and
Facebook page so I can join in on other Facebook groups, like things like that. So, but Catherine, I'll be signing at Readers Take Denver next year, and they're putting me in as one of the Rising Star.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know Dylann, you were there, weren't you, this year?
I was there as Bookbox Babe. I will be there next year as an author.
I was supposed to be there this year, but my son had emergency surgery, so I couldn't go. I was gallbladder and all kinds of stuff. So, anyways, I'll leave so you can introduce.
Okay, yeah, don't leave. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, don't leave.
No,
don't leave.
It's really hard to get in here, so don't come out.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So we are joined. So Don Ludicky here with Romance Happy Hour. We're joined by Dylann. She's that way, and you have this way. You of course just met Catherine Hope, aka Shayna Gray, our repeat author. We love her. We're very excited to have her back.
Thank you.
As a different pseudonym. And USA Today and RWA award-winning author Marie Hall. Welcome, Marie. How are you?
I'm good. I feel short. Just a second while I add books to my seat. Like I'm still 5 years old. There we go.
Awesome.
Why am I so short?
Your camera's
That's awesome.
Okay, now I don't look like I'm a 5-year-old.
Well, welcome to the show. We are, of course, Romance Happy Hour. And Dylann, what have you been working on?
I teased my reader group today because I told them if they tuned in that I was going to show them something that I got this week. And I just got my ARCs for Make Me Yours Cowboy that comes out on June 27th. And you guys, this is like I don't know. This might be one of my favorite covers ever. I don't know. I love the colors. I love the beach. I love the cowboy. Yeah. So
He's a
I'm
cowboy.
excited to
Yeah.
hold it in hand. And so these come out on June 27th, and it's a trad book, so it should be available hopefully at a lot of places. So yeah. So I was excited. I got my box
Okay,
of those
so I'll
recently.
sorry. I was gonna say, so I'm gonna keep my eye out because like we're gonna do
Mhm.
some camping this summer, and we
Nice.
have zero cell service, zero anything, like no
Oh.
electricity, nothing. And so I was thinking, like, next time I need to bring a book, and I need a cowboy book. So I'm very excited that that's coming out. I'm gonna have to read that one.
A book. There you go.
Ooh,
Yep. I just put that out in paperback.
yeah,
Anyways, and I shouldn't have. Okay, carry on.
You'll have
awesome.
plenty of reading material, I think, on your camping trip, Dawn.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
It's
So, yeah,
nice.
so
So Marie, what do you what do you write? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you write. And then both of you let us know what you're giving away, or readers know what you're giving away, so we can kind of tease them a little to go and enter
Okay.
the giveaway.
So I write primarily historical erotic romance, the domestic discipline.
Ooh.
So you're not going to find me tying my heroines to a cross, but um, and I've written 2 contemporaries now, but only one is published. The other one is in production. But yeah, I'm primarily a historical romance writer. I love the history.
I love that. So
So
is it Regency or Western, or
I
what
I
era?
cover all the eras. I cover medieval, I cover Renaissance, I cover Regency, I cover Western, American Western. So I have written a book in every major era there is. So
Awesome. So
yeah.
how many books do you have out now then?
I have currently you can get 19 of them, but I've had as many as 22 out. So
Nice.
there's been a
Okay.
few that I've pulled back just because I'm changing them from being novella size to being full novel size. So, but yes, I have 19 that you can get right now. Only 1, 5, 6, 7, only 9 of those 10 of those you can actually get in paperback. So the other
Nice.
9 are not paperback.
Okay. I hate when people ask me that question because I'm just like, oh gosh, I don't know. I think maybe like 30, or like one's a novella, the short
Yeah.
story, you're like, what are you talking about? Full length? Are you talking about short story?
Right.
How many books have
That's
you
the
written?
thing, right? Because Shayna has over 35 published, and then there's only
Yeah.
like there's so many available because I got the rights back to a bunch of the others that are all going to start coming out, and we just have one for Catherine.
But that's awesome
Catherine
because
will
Catherine's
build up
just
her
starting
list very
out.
quickly, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've got already another book in mind for Catherine. The title is the Gift of Sisters, and so I'm working with my publisher on that right now. Sometimes they'll change the title, but I love that title. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Who's your publisher?
Headline Eternal in UK under Hachette. Yeah. So
Okay.
I
Awesome.
love working with them. Yeah, they're in the UK and
Nice.
yeah, really nice. Actually, I got a new editor, and she used to be with Mills and Boone. So she moved from there over because my editor has gone on a secondment for a year for maternity leave, not for her, but for somebody else. So I'll be glad to see them all together again. Like it's nice to get all the different inputs from the different editors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
we're gonna hear from Catherine first. Marie, we'll hear from you second. So Catherine, do you need to set anything up yet, or are you good to
I'm
just
here.
like?
I'm good to just go.
All right. All right.
Okay, I'll just start right in with chapter 1, and I will continue to read until.
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
My phone spun through the air and down toward the blue waves. How on earth I'd managed to send it flying out of my hand was truly an accomplishment, but then I'm talented that way. I shrieked and leaned over the rail, balancing on the slippery rung as I watched my lifeline gracefully spiral down. The sun striking off the face in staccato bursts with every revolution was like a movie reel. For the briefest moment, I almost panicked at all the images I could have lost forever. Thank goodness for the cloud. But not everything was saved there. Tucked in the phone case were a few precious photos of Rob, my twin, in his final days. I'd used our parents' old Polaroid for nostalgia's sake to take the photos, and they were irreplaceable. It was gone, out of reach, and forever to rest at the bottom of the Strait of the Juan de Fuca, all because of a whale. A stunning whale and her calf, but still a whale. I curled my arms over my head and watched the waves devour my phone. I desperately wanted to see whales when I decided to come to the Pacific Northwest. Everyone told me how fabulous it was if you were lucky enough to catch sight of them. Go whale watching, they said. You'll love it, they'd said. To be fair, I'd been excited to get so lucky and actually see the 2 whales, perhaps too excited. In my haste to get the right shot for my next article for Condé Nast, my phone slipped from my fingers. Like the pop socket popped off, and I was a juggler. I played hot potato with it until poof, it was gone. I was still standing at the damp railing, tottering on my tiptoes, staring at the swells that fanned out from the hull of the ferry. Suddenly, my feet slipped and I flung my arms around the railing, narrowly avoiding falling my phone into the abyss. Strong hands gripped my shoulders and hauled me down. It's not worth it, ma'am. A man's voice just behind me was edged with alarm. I glanced at him and realized he thought I was a jumper. I widened my eyes and shook my head. Oh, no, I wasn't going to. It's just that my voice caught when the reality of my loss hit home. I closed my eyes. So much was on it. My voice croaked in barely a whisper. I was religious at backing up my phone. It held so much of my work and my personal info, but those Polaroids were gone. I'm sorry, he offered. Maybe it's all up in the clouds. Up in the clouds. Despite everything, it almost made me giggle, and I opened my eyes. I didn't want to correct him and forced a smile at the elderly man. I'm sure you were right. He wagged his finger at me. Be careful next time. No leaning over the railing. I promise and thank you. Turning away, I pushed through the other passengers. The joy of seeing the whales just moments before now faded. If I hadn't been such a procrastinator, I'd have scanned the last photos of Rob on my external hard drive and carbonite, but I hadn't. I chastised myself now. I knew better than that. Having lost a lot of work a few years ago when my laptop crashed, but I never thought about those last few images in my phone case. Regret pierced me. I found a bench away from the passengers and sank down onto it, feeling drained all of a sudden. Absently, I rummaged through my bag in search of tissues I knew I had in there somewhere. Emotions I'd been able to manage for the most part since Rob died were rushing back. I didn't want to cry here, in public, or anywhere for that matter. I'd done my share of crying in the months following his death. Memories rolled over me. Rob had teased that I had spent too much time behind the camera rather than living in the moment. I'd argue back that it was important to have photos, both for my job and memories. But he laughed, leaned forward, and gently touched me on the head, and then tapped his chest. Memories live here, Lizzie, he'd said. I could still hear his voice, soft and low, but weak as the cancer ravaged him. I drew in a ragged breath, my throat and lungs tightening. I pulled a bottle of water from my bag and took a long drink. My hat, or rather Rob's hat, blew off my head, landing on the bench beside me, and started to skitter across the wood. I grabbed it before it could fly off in the wind and shoved it in my bag. If I ever lost that hat, well, I couldn't even bear to think about it. As time went by, it was getting more difficult to visualize Rob's face, and that hurt so much. How could my twin's face fade? Out of habit, I reached for my phone, wanting to see a picture of him, and moaned. No, Rob, faces and voices fade. Photos are always there, I murmured. He made me promise not to wallow after he was gone. It had been the most difficult time of my life, somehow worse even than when our parents died. One from illness and the other soon after from a broken heart. But damn it, it wasn't easy. I was taken back to his room. And this is an italicized here as a flashback. Rob lay so wasted and pale on the hospital bed set up in his house. Rather than keep the draperies closed, they were open so the atmosphere wouldn't hold the weight of being in a sick room. A snowstorm painted the old Georgetown street into a perfect Christmas card. But Christmas this year hadn't been festive. Even though I tried to brighten it up with sparkly lights, I crossed my arms and shivered. Lizzie, come here, Rob's voice rasped. I turned from the window to see his hands stretched out to me. I rushed to him and took his chilled fingers in mine, gently rubbing them. But they wouldn't warm up. His skin dry and thin, his breathing had changed, and deep in my heart, I knew. Shh, save your energy. I brushed my knuckles softly across his sunken cheek. I wouldn't cry, couldn't cry. I'd save that for after. No, he swallowed and closed his eyes for the briefest moment before fixing them back on me. Eyes so like mine, and a brightness filled them. To tell you, after I die. Rob, don't say that. My eyes prickled and I blinked, but it didn't stop the tears from spilling down my cheeks. Lizzie, come on. He drew a gurgled breath. I was shaking my head. I simply couldn't believe we were here. Everything is arranged. There's nothing you have to do. You know that. So promise me. His voice faded and his eyes fluttered shut. I leaned over him, suddenly panicked, and whispered, Rob, promise what? His eyes opened and they had a faraway look in them, but his voice was suddenly strong. Promise me you won't stay here. Go and follow your dreams. Don't let go of your dreams. I held my breath as he took another slow one before continuing. I've tied you down for far too long. You must live your life. Promise me. I nodded and tears blinded me. I'll try. No, don't try. Do. It's important you leave here and move on. He lifted his hand and touched my cheek. Go and do the things you've always wanted to do. Stop being so cautious and live on the wild side. Life is short. Do it for me. He closed his eyes and whispered, I need you to promise me this. I promise. I didn't know how I'd manage to keep this promise, but I had to for him. Rob, did you hear me? His mouth moved slightly. Yes, so tired. You sleep and I'll get you some fresh water. I placed his hand under the covers and pulled them up to his chin. Once my big, strong, full of life brother was now so frail and small on the bed, it was shocking. I still couldn't believe this was happening. Taking the empty glass from the bedside table, I smiled at the Polaroid we'd taken yesterday. He'd had a good day, and he told me a joke as I grabbed a selfie. I'd treasure that image forever. I quietly left the room. The fairy horn went off loud and mournful. It snapped me back to present. In a way, I was glad, because reliving going back into his bedroom only to find he'd slipped away in the short period I was gone wrecked me. I hadn't been by his side when he died. I'd never forgive myself for that. I straightened my shoulders and stood, pulling the strap of my bag over my head. And now that special photo was with my phone under the waves. I exhaled, doing my best to bring back my happy thoughts. I much preferred them over the soul-sucking despair of grief. Rob would have thought it was hilarious I'd lost my phone. I know exactly what he'd say. You're an accident waiting to happen, and it makes being your twin so freaking exciting. And here I was in the Pacific Northwest, working on my next blog, and half of it was now among the fishes at the bottom and the bottom feeders. Well, I've had to rewrite before, and while it was annoying, usually the rewrite was better. I should still be able to make my deadline. With Rob's encouragement, I followed my dreams of becoming a freelance journalist a few years ago, making the leap from dog-eat-dog corporate world. I picked up some regular commissions from lifestyle magazines and had found my happy spot doing travel writing. Then Rob had fallen sick. His illness grounded me, and no way was I going to leave him alone. And my blossoming new career was put on hold until I'd refocused, declining opportunities that would take me abroad and accepting those that kept me close to home. Rob had been my main priority. But over the last year or so, Over the last year or so, I've been able to put myself out there again and find editors interested in my freewheeling adventures. Then my foray into blogging with a Mardi Gras article from New Orleans became a huge hit. I'd been shocked and pleased, and the next thing I knew, I was in demand. A total 180 from where I'd been a few short months ago, and the pressure was on. So I'd upped my social media presence and was still careful to keep my journalism jobs at the forefront. Out of habit, I went to post on Insta and fisted my hands. The first order of business was getting another phone pronto. The ferry arrived in the port and the people moved like a pack of sheep to the exit. I let myself be carried along with the flow off the boat, then extricating myself from the herd. I found a spot by the seawall. If only I hadn't decided a little ferry trip was a good idea, then I'd still have my phone and not have to go through the irritation of replacing it. I'd still have my precious photos, be able to dive into my next job without rewrite, and not be in this predicament. Savage Cove was small, quaint, and historic, with a very pretty waterfront and marina, shielded by a spit on the west side that kept the sea relatively calm. Despite everything, I was glad I'd chosen to settle here for the next 6 weeks. I wandered along the seafront, awestruck by the nature's beauty, and the salty tang on the air was invigorating, and my nose was tickled by the mouth-watering aroma of fish and chips carried along by the sea breeze. I knew exactly what I'd be having for dinner later. Beginning to feel a little bit better, I enjoyed watching the birds soar in the wind, calling to each other with sounds akin to laughter. Blocking the sun with my hand, I didn't recognize a species. I remembered seeing a bird book at the beach cottage I'd rented. I'd look them up when I got back. The air was delightfully fresh, and I lifted my face to the sun's warmth. Closing my eyes, I was in the moment, just as Rob had instructed. Live life, enjoy every moment, grab adventure with both hands and hang on tight. Don't dwell on the past or that he was gone. Our time together had come to an end, but I was still here. Right then, on to more living and finding a phone. I strolled a little further along Wharf Street, past a row of beautiful and obviously very old wooden buildings. They'd been lovingly cared for and looked like they'd been converted into very high-end B&Bs and restaurants. The location was prime, and I was inspired to plan a future article. I enjoyed history and learning about the town origins. A story focusing on these lovely buildings would be interesting. At the intersection of Wharf and Lincoln Street, which ran away from the water, I stumbled across a market with vendors selling a variety of wares, from art to baked goods, cheese, crafts, and numerous other items. A particularly interesting metalwork booth caught my attention. It was selling handcrafted metal structures in all sizes. I found a lovely pine tree statue and a little heart made of steel. I was always on the lookout for hearts, and this one had to come home with me. Nick was glad to be back from his latest business trip. It was a great day in the PNW, and the top was down on his Jag. He needed the fresh sea air to clear away his travel hangover, and it had him seriously thinking yet again about scaling back the trips. It was definitely a baseball cap and sunglasses kind of day. He was coming home, although it didn't really feel much like home anymore. The last few years had been especially difficult, and he thought that working hard and traveling often was the way to keep his mind sharp. He'd been to some pretty fantastic places, though, always alone. He doubted there would ever be a time he would have a travel companion, but he couldn't deny it would be nice to share the adventures with someone who appreciated them. He let out a sigh and squinted, cursing that he'd packed his sunglasses and cap in the carry-on bag, which was in the trunk. The good weather had brought out all the tourists. He liked to see the town, his town, hopping, but he also preferred to keep his distance from the crowds. Normally, he'd bypass Wharf Street to avoid the traffic and tourists, but today he hadn't. He didn't know why, and he was a bit startled when he found himself driving through town. His timing lined up with the docking of the ferry, and the street was crammed with pedestrians, none of whom were being particularly traffic savvy. Nick rested his elbow on the door and watched the people spill along the waterfront, keeping his eye on the road in case someone simply walked out from behind a parked car. Creeping forward, he didn't think he'd ever seen it so busy. Savage Cove had changed a lot in the recent years. He still hadn't decided if he was adapting or just ignoring the changes by staying at his beach house most of the time when he wasn't away. He had no reason to leave the house other than for basic necessities, and most of the time his dad handled that, which Nick appreciated. Other than working Walking Houdini on the beach, spending time with Dad, his life had become uneventful. Nick supposed that after the drama of 3 years ago, uneventful wasn't all that bad. He didn't think he was lonely. No, not at all. He kept himself occupied well enough, yet watching the couples and families stroll along the seafront, he felt a little twinge in his chest. He'd almost had that. He thrummed his fingers on the steering wheel, making slow progress along Wharf Street, and turned his attention to the tent tops of the market. The market was not a new attraction in only its second or third year. The place was a zoo. A car suddenly stopped in front of him, and he had to put on the brakes hard. Geez, I really should have taken the bypass, he muttered. Nick looked back at the market, forcing his impatience as the car in front unloaded, the passengers taking their time to get out and move along. It was like the competition to find how many clowns could fit in a Volkswagen. A flash from one of the tents made him blink. Refocusing, he saw a woman holding something that caught the sun. It glinted in the sunlight. The woman's back was to him, and he was struck by the shimmer of her hair under the sun's rays, almost as bright as the flash that had nearly blinded him. He tried to focus and saw her hand gripping a metal object that looked like a heart. The seller put it in a paper bag, and he watched as the woman exchanged money for the item. She was tall, slender, and moved with a willowy grace. He caught his breath, wanting to see her face. He was so intent on waiting for her to turn around that he didn't see the car in front of him had driven off, until the sound of a loud horn behind him snapped him out of his trance. Nick lifted his hand in acknowledgement and drove forward. Finally, he was moving. He glanced back at the market in the rearview mirror, trying to find the woman again, but he couldn't see her through the crowds. Then the market disappeared around the bend in the road. The image of her stuck with him all the way home. Crossing the street. There we go. I'm done. I can't hear anybody.
No, that's okay. I have everybody
got it
muted.
on to kind of be like,
I'm sorry, because she can't see that.
You just,
Well, no, I see that because she.
you just want to start
She can-
making people cry. You just like start out
No,
like, oh no.
Thank you.
I just was kind of trying to get her attention to be like, hey, Catherine, we're getting close on time.
Well,
No,
that would be
I was
great,
like-
but I don't think that they have our same layout, Dylan. I think they
Yeah.
can only see the screen and the comments.
I
Yeah.
see 4
Oh.
pictures.
Yeah, right now I see 4,
Yeah.
but while Catherine was reading, I could only see her. So I
Gotcha.
was
Yeah.
like, and then
That
it
makes
didn't,
sense.
Yeah.
For
and
some
then it didn't
reason,
matter because I was looking for tissue.
oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really great.
That's what I read from the last message, and it is actually the Kindle monthly deal in ebook at 99 cents.
Oh,
So,
nice.
See, it's a big book.
Mhm.
Yeah, when I read it, I'm like, did I really write that? You know, it's like,
Aw.
wow, I really wrote that. You know, and then my friend, she does Audible, and she says, I still can't get over that you write. Honest to God, she says, Jeanine. Oh, I said my real name. Honestly, that is. She says, I can't believe you write.
That's funny.
So yeah, for
Oh,
me it
that's
was
sweet.
like it's like a total suck in because one, I used to live in Washington State, so I
Okay.
know those
I-
places you talk about, and then two, I've had my father passed away here in my own home from cancer after a long drawn out. I was taking care of him, so I was like totally sucked in.
Aw. Well, thank you
Mhm.
for saying that. Yeah, I really, I did a lot of, because I've never been there, but I do a lot of research for places I've never been. And what I've discovered really works well is I go to YouTube and I look for people who are driving. And so this book takes you all the way down to Forks and then on to Rialto Beach, is it?
Mhm.
Which is down there. And then I wanted to go to Mount St. Helens in it and to the Hoh Forest, all these things I wanted to do. So, you know, I really tried to get the flavor of the Pacific Northwest as best I could.
Yeah.
I think Dylan knows what's coming next.
Pardon?
What's that?
I was gonna say, I think Dylan knows what's coming next because I lived in Port Angeles.
Oh,
I used to live in Port Angeles, and in that the the peninsula there. We
Yeah.
used to camp on Clatlick Beach and went
Oh,
to
nice.
the beach on Forks and everything. Yeah. We were there when Twilight was the craze.
Yeah.
They had like
No.
tour shops
And it's funny,
everywhere.
it was never
Yeah.
even filmed there. That's the crazy thing. It was all
No.
filmed
In Canada.
Yeah.
and
But we
down
had
in
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Portland.
Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I was having
Yeah.
to see in my
Yeah.
head, like I know where all your states are, right? Even though I'm Canadian. You know where all our provinces are? No. Right?
Yeah.
Look at her. Look at Dylan. She's like,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think it's amazing, that we're able to do research like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it's awesome that we're able to, because I mean, I think when you think back to how people used to have to do research for their books, I mean, if there was a place that you've never been, and I mean, God,
Library,
I don't know, I'm going to age myself, but you'd have to like go to the library and look
Look at
things up,
microfiche.
on microfiche and using the Dewey Decimal
Mm.
System. And, I mean, it's just, I
Well,
don't
one of
know.
my
I feel like
books,
we're so lucky now because you can
it's
pull up
it's
a YouTube
fantastic.
video, or I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
it's
but
amazing.
not for everything, because I do I mean, I'm sitting right now in my office and I probably have well over 6,000 books, and the majority of them are nonfiction because I use them for research.
Yeah.
And for the book I'm going to read out of today, I actually had to go to the library, and I ended up checking out 14 books on old tall ships, on old sailing ships, so that I could get the feel for what life would be like. And then just for the one scene where they're changing the bilge pump over, I rented Master and Commander.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember the actor's name, but he's like a hunky guy. And
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, there
Yeah.
you go. And I watched that movie like 10 times just because Russell Crowe is in it, but I kept freezing it, rewinding it, pushing it forward so I could get that bilge pump scene correct.
Yeah,
So-
that's good.
Oh my
That's really
gosh.
good. Well, when you have history like that, you
Well-
can't. Like one of my books was set in Monaco, and I thought, I've never been to Monaco. I probably will never go. So that was the first time I ever used YouTube for driving through a city, and it was amazing to do that. Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I'm just
Well,
going to
we only-
offer my services to both of you. Catherine, I have lived almost everywhere or been almost everywhere in the States. So if you ever need any questions, just ask me. And
Okay.
Marie, I was a sailor and my husband wasn't a sailor. And so
Yeah.
Not on a tall ship.
it is
Not on a tall ship,
Not-
but yeah.
no,
it's
but you
sailing
know
and
what?
sailing.
we did have tall ships in the Coast Guard. We never
Yeah.
worked on one, but
Yeah.
we
That's
learned
cool.
about them.
You know what's a really good movie for tall ships is called White Squall. Have you watched White Squall?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
That's-
I've
Yeah.
pretty much done all the research I can do for the tall ships now, unless I
Yeah.
just switch out from the ones that I stayed with, which were the brig, the galleons, and the frigates were the ones that I was focused on, because those are the ones that are in my books. But yeah, I did a lot of the research, and it was so fascinating. So I wasn't sad to do it, but then I'm a historian by formal education and just by nature, and so I love to research anyway. So
Yeah. Well,
Isn't it-
just to bring both of your settings together, they actually have pirates who sail tall ships into the Pacific Northwest once a year.
there
Totally
you go.
think.
They
To
need
bring
to
those two settings together for you both.
that'd be great. I'd love to know that. Pirates need to come back. Honestly, I have a beautiful
Yeah,
pirate.
I mean,
travel.
Tall ships need to come back. We can do without the pirates.
No, tall
I
ships.
was gonna say, we have pirates. We
Yeah.
have pirates. Like the Coast
Oh, I
Guard
know.
likes pirates, but
That is true.
I don't think they're the
Like,
sexy kind
greedy.
anymore. They're definitely
I
not
think
sexy
they were
pirates
probably never
anymore.
super sexy. They just look
I
sexy.
know.
They probably
And
were
having
stinky
teeth
and smelly and had bad teeth and
Well, that one
So,
trivia
fun-
question, that one trivia question that's always like, well, how does a pirate get the name Long? It means he at one point or another ate human flesh, because they considered
Oh,
humans the
yummy.
long pig. So there
Yep.
you go. So if you see a pirate with the name Long in front of it, Long John Silver.
Okay.
There'd
Yummy.
be no, yeah.
And everybody eats at that restaurant.
And they have no clue.
No clue.
I love historicals. I'd love
And
to write one. I got all turned off
I
once
do.
I got so far in, and then I got stuck on the fact of whether his pants would have zippers, buttons, or ties. And I said, okay, I'm out. Yeah.
Mhm. No, I love doing historicals. And
Yeah.
fun fact, they used to put like lemon and lime juice in their whiskey or their rum on the boat in order to prevent scurvy.
Scurvy. Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
in order to prevent scurvy. Yeah, I do nautical historical books as well, and Western historicals, because that's my jam. But let's see. Speaking of which, we are almost to time. Dylan, do we have any questions?
We have one so far.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I will pop that one up there from Lisa Ann. She wants to know, if you were to have a narrator for an audiobook, who would you choose? And so
Oh.
I am assuming, let's maybe just focus on the book that you've got that you're reading from tonight. I don't know if either one of you already have the book you're reading from tonight in audio.
It's on Audible. Yep. What happened for the narrator for this book? My publisher sent me a list of people that could be narrating, and then clips of their voices, and then I got to listen to who they were and kind of narrow it down to two. And so the one that I liked is the one who's reading it, and I'd have to go to Amazon and check her name. So yeah.
And I've actually never thought about doing Audible. It doesn't actually appeal to me. But I wouldn't even be picking somebody from, the Audible, I read books for a living type world. There's this podcaster I listen to named Leonidas, and his voice is just butter. It is, I'm like, oh, and I don't half the time I'm not even hearing what he's actually saying because his voice is just so good. I'm just like, oh. So, but yeah, he's just a podcaster, and I listen to him all the time just to listen to him.
That's cool.
So,
my narrator for this one was Jennifer Kim, because she gets listed.
Oh.
Where did you guys go? I can't find you now. Oh dear.
Ooh,
it should be one of your Google Chrome tabs.
Yeah, we still see you.
Yeah, we do. That's good.
Now we're duck at the top. Yeah, that's a good question. But because mine are those ones are trad. My indies, I don't think I'll be going. It's a lot of money, if you're
what I hear.
It is. There are a lot of people who like audiobooks though too. So.
I know. My friend who read that one.
Mm-hmm.
She's a real estate agent, so she puts it in.
Yep.
Yeah. I have all the equipment to do some audiobooks, but it's actually it's pretty difficult to do all the stuff
somebody's tummy
to do it. But
oh, that's my garage door. Sorry.
Oh, I was
yeah.
Sorry, I will mute for a minute.
But I was gonna say I do have one book that it hasn't come out yet, but I've been under contract with them for a while, so I'm gonna actually have to ask my agent about that. That AI that came out 2 years ago, that AI audio reading.
Chat.
So
what's it called? Chat. My son.
Gap chat, GP chat.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, this one is gosh, I can't even remember now. But anyways, my agent put me under contract with it, and it hasn't come out yet. I'm not sure why not, but I guess I should ask that.
The games like Crazy Maple Studios and that sort of thing. My books are in there through Intake.
No, I think you can do. There's audio now that under Google Play, they offer AI generated audio. Apple.
You'd have
Apple
to be
Books,
really
you
careful.
can do AI generated audio. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Dawn.
No, I can't. It's
Oh,
like owl
okay.
something or something. I don't
We
know.
don't know what you're talking about.
Can you imagine though using AI to read your book? Like, my son is really big into all that stuff. He's in the whole crypto world and AI and all this thing, and he has AI write things for him or say things for him, and it's a lot of the times it needs to be like highly edited, so it would be tough, I think.
It is a very hot topic in the author
I know.
world right now.
It is right now, yeah.
Yep.
wonder how
I
many
did
people
do
actually
some
use it.
AI generated audio, Casey Rose, and I did that for a Kickstarter that we did for some
How
for
did
our
it
Mountain
work?
Men of Mustang Mountain books. There's some
How'd
novella
that
length
work for
books.
you?
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised at how good it was, but it was, I mean, it's definitely not as good as having a real narrator, but because I think, when a narrator who, the good narrators who are used to doing audiobooks, I mean, there's no comparison. They're fabulous, and I would always prefer a good narrator over AI generated audiobooks. But, I mean, I think it's
a start. It wouldn't
it's super expensive, I mean, it can be very, very expensive. And so, I mean, I think that there's probably, I mean, there is a place for it in the marketplace. And I think it's, I mean, similar to a lot of people will have, I mean, you can
I
have,
honestly think the technology for, just home recording the way voice recorders do for audiobooks will come sooner and be better, just because that technology is already there. And when authors start asking to be able to do their own audio for their books, somebody will come up with a way to bring that right into your home office.
well, I
That's
think you already can.
I mean, like without having to go through all the setup of the big, the soundproof room and everything else, it'll be the much more. It may be like the court recorders who actually dictate instead of type, and they have the masks over their face, and they just talk into the mask. But who knows at this point? I actually think that technology will come out before AI actually gets to that point where we can really count on it to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
You ever listen to your own book?
So-
though? It's
I
very
know I hate it. I hate it.
You know,
I hate
well,
it.
You
So
probably
it's-
need to move on though if we want to hear from Marie, because we don't want to
Yeah.
run out of time.
gosh, yes.
I was just gonna
Okay.
say real quick, it's called Kiss. It's called Kiss, and it is through Crazy Maple Studios,
Oh,
but it's called
yeah.
Kiss.
Okay.
Kiss
So-
Kiss is an app that has nothing to do with AI though.
I think it
I
does
don't
because it's
know.
kind of like a game, and I don't know.
It's not
reading
AI
Audio
though.
program.
No, it's
It
just
says we're
reading.
kicking
It's
off
like
our
Radish.
audio program.
Oh, Kiss had an
Oh.
audio program that I don't know about. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Kiss is an app
I don't know.
Yeah.
on your phone.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to go look at it because I haven't gotten anything from them. So
Well,
I gotta
I'm with-
get my agent to go get on that. So yeah,
Yeah, Sarah's saying Kiss is a reading app. That's all I
a
know
reading app.
about Kiss is that
Okay.
it's a reading app, but I don't know if they have an audio component to it as well. But
I mean,
it's like Radish or it's
I don't
serialized
know.
fiction.
You
I've
didn't
never
see all
seen
these
any money.
comments?
What I know.
All these
I
people
I
that
haven't seen
comment.
any money from them, so we're gonna
Me
have to
either.
like dig into that.
Should we hear from Marie?
Yes, we should absolutely. I'm
I don't know. I
excited
thought I
about
was
that
going to
one.
get out of it, but
Oh, you don't want to
Nope.
Okay.
All right, Marie, I'm gonna pop you up there by yourself, and the rest of us are gonna be muted.
And I
So
know
you
Marie.
are.
Marie, I
Go
know
ahead,
you came
Dylann.
in late, but just a reminder, I know you write some pretty steamy stuff, so we
Not these first
are
chapters.
keep it clean, Marie.
Yep, I tell her
Yes,
PG-13. Yeah.
Yes, PG-13 at least. Okay, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
read from The Pirate's Daughter tonight. So, and this is the book one of the books I'm giving away. So, chapter 1, Cartagena, 1827. Devin tugged at the bonds, causing the back legs of the chair to scrape the floor. He'd successfully broken those free hours ago, but the front were securely anchored. "They're coming," the fat man chained to the wall called. "They're coming back." Devin tugged again. The bonds held, and he too could hear the heavy footfalls. He gave one last valiant attempt to break free, settling back to the defeated countenance he'd been maintaining since the moment he was grabbed outside the tavern. As the door opened, the 5 men chained against the wall started to struggle. They could only hear the goings-on, as they'd sacks over their heads, tied with twine at their necks. Devin wasn't treated to the same, which made him far more alert to everything around him. For whatever reason they were taken, their captors had a very specific plan. He counted 7 men entering the room. It was plain these men were pirates. Given their hard demeanor and crude dress, they stepped aside as the last man entered the room. This man could easily pass for any other gentleman of wealth and status, but Captain Robert Devin Winthrop of His Majesty's Royal Navy spent the last 9 years of his career spotting pirates, buccaneers, raiders, rovers, filibusters, marauders, whatever the criminals chose to call themselves at any moment. Pirates had a look to them. Perhaps it was the cold brutality of their acts, the sinister way they preyed on merchant and passenger vessels, while the naval ships tried to keep peace on the waters as so many nations continue to fight among themselves, that the man turned to look at Devin, turned to look at him, and Devin felt a chill roll through. This wasn't going to end well. The other men went to the wall and unchained the captives. More than a few screams of terror rang out. They were, in fact, gentlemen of some prominence, all of them accustomed to the soft lives they lived. The begging started as soon as they were lined up and forced to move blindly forward. "Please, please, I have money. My family can pay you, make you rich beyond your knowing," one man said, only to be met with wild laughter. "Where are you taking us?" the fat man asked. Devin knew him to be the newly set-in governor on one of the smaller islands. He'd been on the ship Devin's own guided through only last week. "Have no cares, Governor Lowe," the leader of this group finally said, not taking his eyes from Devin. "As long as the good captain cooperates, you'll be sent home in fine shape." The statement clearly startled everyone as much as it did Devin. "Do whatever he asks, Captain," Governor Lowe called back over his shoulder. "Do whatever he asks." Devin watched them go. Another man brought in a chair then, moved to cut the ropes holding Devin. "That'll be all for now, Smith. Leave us," the leader says as he took a seat. "Aye, Commodore," Smith said as he walked out, closing the door firmly behind him. As the Commodore settled more comfortably, Devin took time to rub the feeling back in his wrists. He could take the man before him. He was older, unarmed, and if he was quick, he might do it before the others were alerted to the fight. "Oh, yes, I see you thinking carefully on all the options." The man, rather than tighten up and prepare for a fight, settled further back in the chair and crossed his left ankle over his right knee. "It's something I've admired about you, a man who thinks before he acts." Devin remained silent, and for now still. The purpose for his being here would come out, but it would be in the Commodore's good time. Robert Winthrop, captain, on the 2-decker brig Iron Rose. Guns, 14 6-pounders, sufficient in these waters. Crew of 62, including yourself. Last 3 years on assignment to hold the Crown's Western Territories and Colonies. Born 1798 in South York. Put on your first ship at age 6 by a father you're still estranged from. Mother, living. Brothers, 2. No sisters. The man laughed. "Shame. Little girls are a delight." Devin worked to hold his expression. That the man knew so much about the ship didn't strike him as odd. That he knew so much about him chilled. But at the last words, they didn't seem ominous. In fact, they sounded indulging, spoken like a man whose heart was quite soft, not like a bloodletting, murdering pirate. For a moment, Devin wondered if his judgment was correct. "You're not nobility, but you haven't squandered your monies. Invested well. A man of means, if not wealth. You plan to retire when they recall you to port." Devin did respond to those words. Maybe 4 men knew he was ready to give up his commission. Pirates were under control, a fading enterprise, outnumbered and outgunned, and with the newer ships and more cohesive navies. He didn't know yet what he might do. He'd been offered a place at the new academy in Portsmouth, but had not decided if teaching was what he wanted. And again, only 4 people knew that information. You know a great deal about my person, Devon said, shifting in his chair. I take more time to know my allies than my enemies, as my enemies aren't long for this world. You know nothing if you call me ally. Devon searched his memory for the moment he might have met this man. Nothing came to mind. No party, no table at an inn, no word in passing. And no one would believe I'd associate with a pirate. If you think to ruin, the sharp bark of laughter refocused him on the man sitting easily across from him. Not yet, but soon. You see, we'll have a common interest, an association, if you will. That's why you're here, why I chose you. Although I suspect I'll be told rather forcefully I had no right to go about it this way. In the end, I'll have what I'll have, and I'll have you. Have me for what? Devon could always feel when the winds were picking up in a bad way, and without a doubt the squall about to hit would put not only him in peril. My daughter's husband. Devon was pretty sure he'd misheard which was why he gave in to the laughter. How absurd for anyone to think he'd become anyone's husband, let alone husband to a pirate's daughter. He could only imagine what the ghastly female must look like, let alone how she'd behave. If she wasn't so young as to make the criminal to wed her, she was likely already collecting coppers in the cribs along the docks. And to hell with that anyway. He was barely 29, far too young to take a wife, even if his plan to retire were set. Should he change his mind and remain in the Navy, he was forbidden to marry. When the man across from him continued to sit in silence, Devon began to wonder if he wasn't somehow more serious than he thought possible. Clearing his throat, Devon sat back and returned the intense stare. It's good to see you can laugh, the Commodore said. You'll need good humor with Mia. She can be quite a riptide at times, but more often she's just a little willful and stubborn. Marriage should see the winds spill out. You aren't serious that I should marry your daughter, Devon asked, then saw the man's expression and knew he was deadly serious. I'm not going to marry. Why would I marry? I can't marry, Devon sputtered. You'll marry her, because if you don't, the deaths of those men will be on your head, the man said, causing Devon to shoot to his feet. I'm not responsible for them. You misunderstand. Their deaths? Well, you'll be blamed for them, or rather, it'll be found you murdered them. The Commodore motioned for him to retake a seat, and Devon did as he felt his knees weaken. Yes, I've arranged it so when you leave here, you'll either be hero or a criminal, and no one will doubt any of it. Why me? Devon asked. You, because as limited as my choices are, I'm not sure I'd find a better man for Mia, and it's my hope, as I said, that marriage will take the wind from her sails. Take the wind? He was more than sure now the woman was a whore drawing the wrong kind of attention to her father's activities. Perhaps even, given this man's obvious fondness for the chit, he worried she'd fall to an enemy. You need a husband to control her? You have not heard a father can command a daughter? He chuckled. It sounds like what you need is a strap, not a husband. Control your child with a spanking, but don't think you'll foist her on me. The bellowing laughter that erupted out of the man was almost comical. He laughed so long and hard, Devon was too surprised to take advantage of the attack. When he finally regained some calm, all he could do was shake his head. I'm hardly a man to admit it, but with me, I've no will to discourage, let alone discipline her. She's had my heart from the moment she took breath. But now, again, the man shook his head more sadly than before. Now her activities have put a decade's worth of my work in jeopardy, as well as her own life. No, she'll wed. You'll take her to England, take the position on land, and you'll keep her off the seas until I have finished with my purpose. Her activities? Was this woman not a whore, but a pirate? It wasn't unheard of, women pirates. I'm not marrying your daughter, and once I'm free, I'll put an end to your purpose. You'll be at the end of a rope, the way the pirates find themselves. No, the older man said again, settling back, not until I find the man who stole my greatest treasure, a man responsible for other criminal acts. But those aren't my concern, although I suspect he'd be yours if your king wasn't so clueless. The man dropped his foot hard to the floor and abruptly sat forward. You, Robert Winthrop, will wed my daughter, as I've said. Why must I wed her? Why must she wed at all? Devon couldn't help but ask. The man's words intrigued him. What didn't the king know about in the Caribbean? And what criminal acts? I've tried, for the last 5 years, I've tried to keep Mia from working to take my vengeance from me. She's become too emboldened, too willing to risk her life in her pursuits. And yet she won't hear any word of the dangers. A whip speaks loudly, Devon stated flatly. This woman sounded like nothing but trouble, and yet, sitting here before her father, a pirate no less, the urge to protect her washed over him. As I've said, I'm no man to be heavy-handed with her. She's special. Devon groaned, wondering now if he was saying his daughter had a weak mind. I can't marry her. I'm sure there's any number of suitable men. You will wed her. I've chosen you. The man stood walking to the closed door. He pounded on it before moving back to his seat. You'll wed her, or before you're swinging for the deaths of the governor, the youngest son of the Duke of Pembroke, and those other 3 members of the Ton, you will hear of the downfall and death of the rest of your family. And even with only brothers, I'm sure it'll be a great unpleasant telling. And your poor mother. You son of a, Devon yelled, coming out of his chair and going straight for the man's throat, only to have the points of more than a few blades pressed against his breast. The threat enraged him past reason. But he'd no recourse at the moment. And as he tried to take a deep breath, he saw a short, nearly bald man pushed into the room. The friar came in calmly, subdued, nothing like the wildly flailing and screeching female carried in over the shoulder of a man so large he had to turn sideways and duck to make it through the doorway. He watched as the well-shaped woman was gently set on her feet by the giant, who made sure she was steady before stepping back. He didn't step back far enough, though, as the woman whose face he didn't matter given the fine creation her body was, balled her fists and pounded on the man's chest. The giant simply stood there and took her assault, not flinching until she stepped back and tried to strike him in the groin with her knee. She was blocked, and Devon felt his heart leap to his throat when the man set his big hands on either side of her head. But rather than snap her neck, he bent down and kissed her forehead. That soft act must have had some witchcraft attached. It was all it took to still the female. You crusty barnacle, she said with a voice as soft as the lapping waves. Mia, the Commodore called, with no authority at all in his voice. Papa! The woman spun around, clear surprise on her very beautiful face at seeing the man. Papa! She cried out as she flung herself against him. I should have known. Devon saw her eyes tighten as she tried to get closer. Mia, my little siren, the Commodore said, pushing her backwards and giving her the same full appraisal Devon was giving her, though for Devon it wasn't given with a fatherly eye. The woman was stunning. Even in the poor lighting, Devon wouldn't have been able to miss those full high breasts, the tight curve of her waist, the flare of her hips, and considering she wore breeches, her long trim legs. Her loose flowing shirt covered her ass and the top of her thighs, though he guessed they were fit as the rest of her. The swirling cloud of thick dark hair swished wistfully around her knees as the Commodore tried to push it back from her face. Look at you. Have you grown? The Commodore asked, and sounded exactly like Devon thought an overindulging father might. The woman snorted. Only fat. The slope I bought took no effort. Fat? She was hardly. You bought a ship? The question was directed at the three men standing in the doorway and the tone was anything but indulgent. Oh, stop, Papa, she giggled. How might they have stopped me? I wanted to buy it, so I did. It's a fine, fast ship. I'm sure I'll be able to. Devon wondered if the man heard how she sounded exactly like he did. She wanted something, she'd have it. The Commodore wanted something, he'd have it. Too bad the Commodore didn't also only want a ship.
That's awesome. Sounds so good. I love a pirate. I love a good pirate book. It reminds me a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, like the relationship between Keira Knightley's character and her father, but he seems a little bit more like stronger than her father was.
Yes. Yeah. He's out there doing his thing and he has the power. I write him. He actually has quite a bit of power and connection, which is how he manages to get the Naval Commission to allow Mia on the naval ship as Devon's
Mhm.
wife. So I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing, this entire whole book takes place on the ship. So there's no land. They're all on the ship, and then his pirate's wife is the second
Yeah.
book, and it's the same couple. It's the same couple, but they're on land. So,
Oh,
and
nice. Nice.
yeah, and these two books are the ones I'm giving away. So I don't know which way we got to go here. So
You know, everything's
Perfect.
backwards. It's very
Yes.
confusing when you get on the screen here because everything is reversed. So.
yes, but yeah, so it's got a good bit of nautical language, and I use the nautical language as some really strong innuendos, and so, and they're both, because me as a captain on her own ships, she's not a commodore, even though her father has her with control of over 6 of her own ships that she collects the money from. She's not owner of them. So the fact that she just bought her own second ship, she's pushing to take that Commodore status. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she doesn't want to not be captain on the ship that she's about to be on. So that's the conflict between the two of them.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, cool.
Well, Dylan, do we have some questions?
Well, I was going to say, we're like pushing time here. So I mean, I think we don't have time for very many questions. I don't know. I know there was one here. Lisa Ann was asking, I know Marie's family knows what she writes under. Do the rest of you write under an assumed name? And if so, do your families know and read them? I mean, Catherine kind of talked about that a little bit already.
Because I'm writing Catherine, they know this book, where'd it go? See, I'm all backwards here. It's all closed door, but it's got a slow burn in it, so it's okay. But my kids, yes, they know my Shayna Gray, and I used to write erotic romance with Alora's Cave, so I've written really, really hot. They know. They haven't read it, my kids. They say they don't want to know Mummy's passionate mind or whatever, you know. My mom read some of my books, and she read one that was really hot. She goes, "Oh, that was a nice story." My mom died 10 years ago. Aww. And then my dad, I gave him a copy. I know. And I gave my dad a copy of my Harlequin Blaze. Which was written with, I was in the book with Leslie Kelly. So, and in there it had a very, and I can't say it on here because it's PG, but it had a very like hot sensual scene in the Mile High Club. And my dad, and I said, "Here, Dad, here's my first Blaze with Harlequin. I just, you can have a copy of it to show people." Well, he freaking read it. And I'm like, "You read my book." Oh, And so that was kind of different, but yeah, no, I write under the names.
Yeah. I'm going to just say all 3 of my parents died. So my father, my stepfather, and my mother, all within a year just before I got published. So none of them were ever able to read anything. Oh. But my, bless her heart, Southern Baptist mother-in-law reads everything, and she shares it all with her church ladies, and I'm just like, nice. I can never ever go back to Georgia.
So, yep, it's tough. I used to work for the police, and I was writing books long before I started working for them. And then somehow or another, it came up, and apparently I had to ask the chief for permission to have secondary employment. Well, it's not employment, really. I didn't. So anyways, I did. I had to. Otherwise, I could have gotten in a lot of trouble or lost a job or whatever. So I wrote him a little letter, and then he wrote back. He goes, "As long as you don't use anything from here, any cases or whatever." And I'm like, okay. So, but,
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I used to teach, and my worst fear was that one of my students from the past would find my books and read them, because I don't know yet if I'm going to get back into teaching one day or not. But yeah, I was like, let's not let the sad thing is I have she's completely past college age now, a college age daughter. And while she was in college, she was sharing my books with all of her dorm mates. And I was like,
Right.
well, now I can never go to the state of Arizona. So, yeah, this is like, yeah. So pen name was highly important to me, even though
Right.
my family didn't care what I was doing.
Right.
My pen name is actually, I used to even have a third one years ago. So when I started with Harlequin and Hachette, I changed to Shayna Gray. And that's actually my son, combination of my son's names and Graydon and Shane. So put it together. So that's
that's clever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was trying to, I don't know what to do. You know, I couldn't get my parents' name to work. Henry and Doris.
Well, on that note, I think we're gonna have to wrap up. We've gone over as we always do. If you watch the show, you know that we just can't keep it to an hour. We always go over. But as we wrap things up, can you tell everybody where's the best place to find you? Go ahead, Catherine, if you want to tell us. You said that you do hang out on Facebook as Catherine.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And so you can find me in those places. And just a reminder, this book is 99 cents this month as an ebook. And Shayna Gray, right there's that book. Okay, hang on.
It's all backwards. Yep.
That book there. That one. Working Girl is also 99 cents.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Little monthly deal. But yeah, you can find me and my website, CatherineHopeBooks.com.
So
awesome. Great reading.
What about you, Marie?
So I'm on all the social medias as well as Marie Hall, and sometimes as Marie Hall author or author Marie Hall. It just depends on where you're looking. But I do have a links tree, so you can look up Linktree Marie Hall author, and that should get you there. I'm always on Facebook. I'm always on Instagram. I Twitter a lot, but you probably don't want to read those Twitters. And then let's see, my website, which is mariehallswriting.com. I have the newsletter sign up. Of course, you can, in order to get in the drawing for these, you've got to find me on BookBub.
Yeah, my giveaway.
And I think that's it. I'm going to be at several signings in the next couple of months. So if you actually want to come out and meet me live, I'll be at Wild Deadwood Reads. I'll be at Galena Reads, and I'll be at Committed at the Stanley. And then I'll be at Raw in February of next year. So I've got those. Plus, we are setting up a book signing here in my hometown on the western slope of Colorado. And as that gets more firm, we have a date of August 10th, but as we kind of firm that up, I'll start promoting that. So, and that will go out to support Ranch Hand Camp, which keeps the lifestyle of ranching alive, teaches 8 to 16-year-olds how to work on a ranch.
Oh, cool.
So we'll be doing that book fair to support that.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
And we will have our giveaway. We'll stay open through Sunday night. So if you haven't headed over, if you haven't had a chance to head over to the Romance Happy Hour Facebook page, go ahead and check that out. And we will be back in a couple weeks. Dawn?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. 2 weeks. End of June.
I was going to say, you look tired, Dawn.
I'm tired. And my mother-in-law just showed up 10 minutes before the show. So I'm like distracted.
Kind of free a little.
If I seem... Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Well, thanks for the questions in Facebook and answer people.
She froze.
Who, me?
There you go. You're back.
Me? Oh.
Yes, you froze. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I'm going to go through the comments because I can't do it here. But I'll go through the
Yeah, you can't do it as a guest there, but you can go back on our Facebook page and reply to any comments and questions that way afterwards.
Perfect. And my giveaway's out there too, so I didn't talk about it here, but It's there.
Yes, they're all on the page. There's a big under the featured posts. The giveaway post is up there. It's pinned, so it should be very obvious when you first go to the page. So but thanks for being with us tonight. We appreciate hearing from both of you. You both did a fantastic job reading and sharing your stories. We really appreciate seeing you here again, Catherine. It's always fun to see you. And Marie, thanks for visiting us for the first time.
Yes,
We
it
hope
was
you'll come
fun.
back. So
I
love you.
And with that,
have
we'll
a good
see you.
beginning to summer.
Yes, we're
Yes.
cold and under a lot of smoke from the fires.
Yeah, I know. Everybody seems
Yeah.
well. We are here in Minnesota too, so
Yeah.
hopefully
Well,
that clears away.
It snowed here last weekend, so I'm not talking to anybody.
All right.
All righty. We'll see you next time. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.